All right, guys. Well, hey, this last weekend in Huntington Beach was our first ever legacy retreat. It was hosted by Ashton and Brienne Eaton. Ashton was the gold medal winner in the decathlon at this year's Olympics, and Brienne was the bronze medalist in the decathlon and for the women. And they are on fire, folks, for World Vision. In fact, we we got to spend an incredible day with them on Saturday. I'm hoarse because of all the games we played. We did scavenger hunts out in Huntington Beach in the community. Believe it or not, your buddy Johnny Huddle got on a surfboard for the first time in 20 years and rode two waves in order to get 10 points in our scavenger hunt. We had the opportunity to do an 8-mile run all together Saturday morning, and then after the run, we all came together, and Ashton and Brienne led us in a workout. It was pretty awesome. One of the moments that stood out for me, though, was Ashton and Brienne just came back from their second trip to Kenya, where they hung out with my friend Ronald Amolo, who I've told you many stories about in Bartabwa, and he took them to the new water project that he just completed, which we funded. And in that water project, I have 20 pictures of that water project in my Facebook Messenger feed. I've got to go through them, and I haven't shared them with you yet because I don't have the story, and I have to make sure that whatever I talk about, that I know what I'm talking about. But they got to see this project, and a part of the project incorporated a man-made dam about 30 feet wide and 30 feet tall, kind of a square stuck into this river. And it was a wire mesh dam where the women and men of the community created a gravel filter and a gravel, kind of like almost a homemade concrete to fill up in this dam. Well, the way they got the gravel for the filter and the gravel for the concrete was they got it out of the ground. And Ashton, he had to pause 3 times when he was telling the story because he just broke up emotionally. He was so moved, and Brienne was too. But at one point he just said, look, guys, unless you've seen this, you can't believe it. These men and women sitting on the ground, digging granite up out of the ground, and with what he called, and this is Ashton's exact words, with Shawshank Redemption hammers, they banged that granite into gravel that they could use for the concrete and for the filter. And I just walked up to Ashton after it was an incredible session. I wept through the entire session. It was an hour session. And I just walked up to him and I said, you blew me away with that hammer story. And he laughed and he said, yeah, I couldn't think of another description. But that was the hammer that came to my mind because it was the same size as the one he uses in the film. And I said, bro, that's what they're doing. I mean, they're in prison to poverty. And they are hammering and breaking that shale and setting themselves free from poverty. And the moment I said that, tears just filled his eyes. And he was like, oh my gosh. He said, that works. That is exact. And I said, dude, you said it. You said it, and it wrecked my heart. And I got to thank you from a friend of mine who was a no to the retreat. He's a very, very successful businessman, extremely successful. He's a legacy guy, but he's also a legends guy. What that means is he has fundraised over $50,000. In fact, he's broken $100,000 over his lifetime participating with Team World Vision. And I didn't really have it to give, but in my Southwest account, I had a free ticket. Not like one you could do from all the way from New York to LA, but he flew in from a West Coast state, and I was able to gift him the ticket. And there's a reason why I'm sharing this, guys. It's not to boast like I'm some kind of generous guy. He said yes because he had that ticket, and he has not stopped thanking me. He was so blown away by that weekend and that experience. And he kept saying to me, Johnny, I've got to get back in Team World Vision. I can't believe I haven't done it this year. I got to get back. And you could just see this fire had returned. And so, as you know from my email, this call is about your people who are not yet online or aren't registered. And I know I may sound like a broken record, but guys, I want you to hear me out on this. It may cost you time to make these phone calls. It may cost you time to text these folks. To pray for them costs you time. It may cost you money. You may need to get them to a cup of coffee or offer, hey man, look, I'll buy you a Starbucks this weekend, before church or something. If you'll just get online today, will you get online today? Will you register for the race today? But I am telling you guys, the people in your life who've made these commitments, who handed in those commitment forms are worth it. They are worth it. They're worth our time. I saw a room of 100 people who have fundraised at least $10,000 per person, weeping, playing together, rejoicing, celebrating what God has done. But every one of those suckers in that room, including me, and I've raised, guys, by God's grace, over $360,000 for this mission. We were all invited in by someone like you. Somebody that just said, look, you're giving me a no, but listen, you can still do this charity relay. I'll help you figure out a way. I'll sit down with you like Lindsay Hill did with my own wife, Amanda. Sat down with her and helped her figure out her schedule in her own freaking calendar. I'll do it with you. I'll get it in your, I'll do whatever I got to do. Don't turn your back on that moment when God called you into this and you said yes. In fact, Lindsay is on the call. Lindsay Dean Ratchford's on the call, and she is, as you know, one of my best friends and a partner in ministry who has a true heart for these children that we run for. Henry Nouwen, the great writer and lover of Jesus, he says that most people who fundraise feel like they're begging, but that they're actually doing the opposite of begging. Because when a beggar begs, you give the gift and it addresses a need in their own life. But you, my people, you are not begging, and there's nothing wrong with begging. But that's not what you're doing, because when you receive the gift, it transforms someone else's life. You are giving them a gift and inviting the giver into a life-transforming journey. Well, that works in fundraising, but it's also going to work this way with folks who have made these commitments. And Lindsay's going to tell us a story about one of her people. Lindsay, thanks for being on the call.
No, thanks, guys. Just you guys know. I mean, most of you guys have captained before, and those who haven't, we are honored to see people's lives transform and do things they never thought they could. And I mean, and we joked at my church a couple weeks ago, things we didn't even want to do. Like we don't necessarily want to run a marathon, like flat out, but we feel this call and we respond, and before we know it, we're doing this thing, And for these folks on the team that you're going to call, I know that you might be thinking, man, this is awkward, or man, I don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to call them, and I'm going to be bugging them, or whatever. And guys, I'll be straight up. All that stuff goes through my head sometimes before these calls, and Johnny and I talked about it in the office today. You got to be prayed up and ready, but you got to remember what God has brought you through and what your story is, and what it felt like. For those of you that have crossed the finish line, for those of you that have gotten a donation out of nowhere, take that spirit into these calls and remember that the person on the other end is you before that all happened,
Yes.
And so I was making calls for Colorado, this summer, and I was going through a church that literally I had been there one day. I was there one day for those services, and I didn't know anybody there. And there was a woman that, signed up for that marathon. And, John always talks about the shaking hands and the tears in the eyes when people hand over those commitment forms. That's not a lie. Guys, I don't know if you have never seen that before, but that is real. People are nervous about making this commitment, and then they walk away, and some people tell them that they're stupid or this is dumb or they can't, kind of man. They're telling themselves that, and so I called up a woman named Sarah, and I just, said, hey, this is Lindsay with Team World Vision. I'm just calling to encourage you, and I want to see how you're doing. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I see right here that, you checked you wanted to run this marathon, and I can see, you haven't jumped online yet, and I wanted to encourage you and check in and see how you're doing. And she was like, yeah, I really just don't think I'm going to do that. And I was just like, do you mind me asking why? And she just said, I just don't think I can. And I kind of chuckled a little bit, and I said, I get you. And she was just like, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's a marathon. I get it. Like, you don't know if you can do it. I said, so you've never run a marathon? She said, no. And I said, have you ever tried? And she said, nope. And I said, well, then it makes sense that you don't know if you can or not. And I said, to be honest, like I told her, I had trained for a marathon. It was the craziest, hardest thing I'd ever done. And there were many moments that I didn't think that I could. And then I did. Every Saturday is one of those opportunities. And even if you have done certain runs, there are going to be days that you think that you can't. And then all of a sudden you do. And there might even be days that you just can't. But you get up the next day and you try again. But it's not about saying yes to, I 100% am going to blow out my fundraising goal, and I'm going to 100%, cross this finish line and crush my time, and I'm going to be great. It's just saying yes to whatever you said yes to originally. And I just asked her, I said, is the reason why you said yes still true? Is it still real? And she said yes. And I said, then I think you're still saying yes, And she just said, what if I can't? And I said, well, lives are still going to change. That you're going to still be better than you were yesterday because you're a little bit further than you were. And I said, and if you make your own donation to your page, then one kid's going to have water that didn't. So even if you end up not crossing the finish line, that kid's going to have water. And I said, and if you have the guts to tell people you're doing it, I said, that's going to motivate you to keep going. And more kids are going to have water, whether you cross the finish line or you don't. And, we ended up talking a lot about group runs. We started talking about training, and she was just nervous, and we talked it through, and she said she was going to try. And the day after the marathon, I sent her a text and said, you are a marathoner. And guys, she crossed that finish line, and she literally did like big tier weeks with me. And she just said, I never would have done it unless she would have called. And I have a text message. I texted her and said, Sarah, you are a marathoner. I am so proud of you, and I was honored. I am honored to see you cross that finish line yesterday. And I told her heart and her determination really are inspiring. And I told her I hope her soreness was actually a good soreness and that it reminded her, of all the good that she's doing in the world. And guys, I've still got the text message. I took a photo of it. I sent it to John. If you want to see it, he'll email it to you. And I have it because I still get nervous about calling people. And she said in this text message, thank you, Lindsay. I am so grateful that you encouraged me to dig deep and commit to the full marathon. You are the perfect person for this role. And she says yada, yada. But then she's encouraging me, So all I'm saying, guys, is go after it. These calls are worth it, and they are not long. And even if it's just a message of you saying, hey, I really believe you can do this, call me back, text me back, meet me at group run, get online. But I just told her, if you get online today and you do your run today, you're one step closer to the finish line. And she did it, And guys, with that, if I can, real quick, I was just in the field in October and November, and I got to, for the first time, meet my sponsor child's mother at his house. And Adair is 10 years old. And immediately I found out he is not one of 4 kids, but one of 5, because his mom had given birth to his baby sister just 2 months ago. So almost 3 months ago now. And all I could see were her cute little feet dangling around her mom's hips because she was strapped to her back, And her mom was just smiling from ear to ear and so thankful that we were there and just, shaking my hand and smiling. And immediately I just said, how are you doing? And, through the translators, they said, she's doing good, the baby's doing good. And I said, did you have her here, right here at the house? And she just shook her head, guys. And, unbelievable, infectious smile. And she said, no, I had her at the maternity ward. And guys, I mean, I literally was just stuck right there, frozen, because Don Lee and I and that team last year visited the local maternity ward. It's a local maternity ward, and World Vision sponsored with them, like partnered with them, and got them a water tank to hold clean water, put in 3 brand new clean latrines, did sanitation and hygiene training, and they're trying to eliminate home births in Ethiopia entirely, because that is the #1 killer of women in the world, is childbirth. And this woman shakes her head and she says that is the first child she has had underneath medical supervision, and that little girl is the first one in her family to have a birth certificate. So guys, when you're talking about clean water saving lives, like, it's shutting down like life-threatening diarrhea, but it is also allowing women to have babies underneath medical care with clean water and hygienic practices. And I mean, guys, you know, I don't have kids yet, and I'm terrified of having children. And to see this woman celebrate her 5th child, her 3rd daughter, and to know that daughter has a birth certificate now, and water was all fundamental to that. I mean, what you're doing is no joke. So just do not be weary, do not lose heart, and get on the phone and let people know that they can do it, because it's worth it. So I love you guys, and you know that I'm always accessible. So if you have any questions, you know, you can hit up John, but I'm always here for you too. And I just love you guys. So that's all I got.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. That's amazing. Guys, I hope that encourages you. When Lindsay and Don came back with the update, they've just been rocking our hearts with these stories. And Aderju's mom, and when she said, you know, first child with a birth certificate, I couldn't get my mind around it. It blew my mind. But you know, she's gone from being out there for hours and hours every day searching for water to now being in a place where she can have children in a healthy way and have a shot at raising them through that crucial first 5 years. Our runners are making that possible. And you've got people on your list that God has already called to do this. And what I love about the call and the text messages you can send this week is you don't have to get them to say yes. They've already said yes. You're going to say 3 things. Hey, let's say I was calling Lindsay. Yo, Lindsay, I'm just calling to let you know, man, our Team World Vision team is doing great. We're meeting up at the Rose Bowl or at LAX. Last week, Ken and I had like his big run where he really kind of came out of it, and you could tell that he was stepping into a new phase of his journey. But I got to tell you, man, we need you on this team. We really want to change these kids' lives, and you need to know that if we got you on this team, our impact is going to grow. And it's not too late to do this. If you could do a 40-minute workout where you jog or walk high heart rate, high intensity for 4 minutes, and then walk for 1 minute, and repeat that 10 times, then you're in great shape to begin training for this week. And if you need to even scale it back a little bit, we'll work with you for the charity relay. But we really need you. And so when you said yes, you know, I know it probably feels like it's impossible to do it right now, but I just want you to I want to encourage you just to open up your fundraising page or register for the race if you've already opened it up but you haven't committed to that race. And just give God a chance of getting you that finish line. And then just, how do you feel about that? And just listen to what they say. Pray for them if they need you to pray for them. Don't worry. Have fun. Team World Vision is fun. But your call could change their life, and it could lead to other moms, guys, having clean water and safe and healthy places to go to the bathroom and sanitation training that could save lives. And we need everyone to step up. Right now, we have 368 runners who have opened fundraising pages and have gotten registered. 100 relay teams are filled. but we have 130 relay teams that are unfilled. So that's 260 people we still need to get into the charity relay. We've crushed our full marathon commitment to LA Marathon. We committed 100 runners, and we have 164 runners running the full. And so a lot of the folks that we're calling, they may have initially wanted to do the full, and maybe they didn't do their training, like they could still begin some of the base training stuff for the charity relay and have a life-changing experience. And one of the things I always say to somebody is, if they've got this kind of ego trip mentality on doing the full, and they say something like, well, I'm going to wait till next year to do the full, I always say to them, look, don't let that idea of you doing the full keep you from saving kids' lives right now. Because when a donation is made, that donation is immediately actionable to needs in the field. It doesn't wait till race day, guys. It doesn't wait till you cross the finish line. That's the brilliance of how World Vision's system is set up. And so, well, Johnny, come on, man. How many people do we even have to work with? Guys, do you know what our uncommitted number is right now? 624. We've got about 240 online who have not registered for the race. And then we've got another about 400 who are not online yet, but their hand was shaking like Susan's when they handed in that commitment form, and they need a friend to call them up. I can't do 400 calls. I need my people to get my back on that. And this week we got a plan. An individual email is going to go out that addresses this need either tomorrow or Wednesday. We're trying to get it into tomorrow, but I got a feeling it's not going to go out till Wednesday. And then LA Marathon and I are going to speak a week from the day about our registration numbers, because we got to communicate that to them. And at that time, if I don't have enough folks registered for the relay, I may have to give up some of my relay spots. It sounds like they're putting a negative pressure on me. They're not. The race is awesome. It's just a complicated relationship, and they're under deadlines too. And guys, we've got the people. We just have to spend that time this week loving them in. Let's do this. Let's do this, and let's take the time to do it and give God glory with the effort that we give. Now, in the last 4 minutes, I just want to talk a little bit about group training this weekend. All right. This is one of my favorite weeks of group training all year. It's an awesome week for a first-timer to come to group training. Because you remember when you were a kid? And y'all were running from the neighborhood bully, or you were running during cross-country practice, which you hated, and you would say to your buddy, huffing and puffing, oh man, wow, I feel like I've been running for an hour, but you'd only been like running for 10 minutes. Well, this is the weekend where charity relay folks are going to run for an hour, 60 minutes. It's going to be awesome. And it is the weekend our full marathon runners break into double digits, 10-mile run. Folks are getting their 8-milers in. I've been seeing it all weekend. Next weekend is the 10-miler. So take a look at the group training guide, and it's got a great script in there that you really don't need to add to. It really amps up how big of a deal this is for your runners. And then one of the things it talks about is, because running for an hour, or running or walking for high intensity for an hour, or running 10 miles is such a big deal, now is the time, if you've not done it yet, to encourage your people to take those selfies and send those messages through email, Facebook, text messages to their people that they're doing this. I mean, if you do a 10-mile run, dude, you're committed. I mean, that's crazy. So let's encourage people. Guys, it only takes a couple minutes to send that selfie with that fundraising link and create that impetus, that opportunity for kids' lives to be changed. I'm seeing people, we've already got legacy runners on the team this year. I'm seeing people do an amazing job with this, all right? And remind people this week when you're talking to them, if they're not online, that means they've not joined your team. That's about getting online, getting their fundraising page, and getting access to their training. If they're not registered, that means they're not paying for the race. Nobody should be waiting to register when they're training for a marathon. It's psychology 101. People have got to commit now. We've got time. If Lindsay Hill, one of our all-star team captains, she's going to have to be out of training for 2 weeks because of some craziness she's going through. She's a stinking boss, though. She's already posted on Facebook. She can't wait to get back in 2 weeks and kick into training. Our training's very long, so there is enough time for people who have an ankle tweak or an injury to make it back in. So we got to encourage them to stay committed. I'll be sending personal text messages out to a number of folks this week. But I just want to. I guess it's 5:30 and I want to wrap it up. If I could take one more minute, I just want to thank you guys again for just being an awesome team. You know, Ricky sent me a text message this weekend while I was at the retreat of one thing. It was of a blue balloon tied to a signpost. That made me so happy because those little moments when you don't just chalk on the ground the direction your runners need to go, but you create that second level of visual, acuity or not. I don't think acuity is a word I'm looking for, but just a visual signifier. That is love, guys. See that love is not emotion. Love is not feeling. Feelings and emotion are a symptom of love. Love is action that you take to care for somebody else who has been entrusted to you. Whether it's their physical journey as a runner or a walker, or it's their fundraising journey, or it's their spiritual journey, that original commitment they made. One of the guys that was at the Legacy Retreat, is one of our team captains, is a really cool guy. I mean, he's kind of too cool for school. I love him to death, but he is. Dude, he told me, yeah, I'm going to come for an hour and then I'm going to bail, Johnny. He stayed for the whole weekend, Friday and Saturday. Went back to his church yesterday, so inspired by Ashton and Brienne and their stories of Bartabla. And he got 24 more people committed to run. Guys, let God light that fire in you, all right? Let me pray for you. Don't hang up. Father, I lift up my people to you right now. And I ask that you light their heart on fire. And in the next 30 minutes, we're not going to be on our call. So they've got time right now to call somebody, to text somebody, to text 4 or 5 people, to kind of get their mojo working. Will you anoint them with the right spirit? Will you keep their eyes fixed on these children and moms and dads that they are running for? And will you give us, God, that boldness and courage? Because, Lord, if our kids can go out there for 8 hours a day, we can handle somebody saying no. And when we get that yes, we're going to celebrate it like it's the greatest Christmas gift in all the world. We love you and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. That's it, guys. That's the call. If you want to stay on for questions, I'll stay on for another 2 to 3 minutes, and I'll take a couple questions.